So in this video, we're going to break down how Ron DeSantis got caught stealing $35 million funds allocated for pretty much FBAs.
Might have to drop a dime on them niggas.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Gotta stop it.
I don't like that shit.
For sure, bro.
I don't like that shit.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, push on the algorithm. I greatly appreciate that. He's going to jail. He's going to jail. Shout out to the Miami Herald for breaking this down detail by detail. Okay, but we're going to get into this and we're going to show you how he's taking FBA funds. Check this out. So Ron DeSantis administration diverted more than $35 million in taxpayers' funds, an amount for greater than previously known, as part of a brazen agenda last year to defeat two ballots amendment he staunchly opposed. A Miami Herald, Tampa Bay Times investigation has found. So this point right here, right? I'm gonna break y'all how he had to have a connection with some kind of cannabis manufacturer, dispensaries. Something had to happen for him to push so much money on the marijuana bill. Okay, but let's go here. It says the ads purchased with the diverted money blanketed TV, social media, and radio stations. In the weeks before the election, they defended Florida's 6-week abortion ban and made exaggerated claims about the dangers of marijuana without mentioning that both were the subject of ballot amendments last fall. So that's where I'm telling you some money got paid to him just because of this. So along the way, the governor's administration bent state spending laws and obscured millions in government spending. Records and interviews show. So this is facts. They're going to break it down. Now, the findings shed new light in the DeSantis administration marshaling of state resources to finance his fight against political causes supported by majority of Florida voters. Amendment 3 would have legalized recreational marijuana. Amendment 4 would have overturned the six-week abortion ban pushed by DeSantis, but fell just short of 60% needed to pass. The irony of those numbers, right? Then he put the most visible cog in his campaign. The use of the state Hope Florida charity is the subject of grand jury investigation. So he's already investigated. He's going down. You know, for this to go into the Miami Herald, and they're not talking about this enough, in my opinion. So in that case, nearly $10 million from a Medicaid settlement was steered to a political committee controlled by the governor's chief of staff. So we see Medicaid, he's taking some funds that were supposed to be meant for Americans. So let's go here. The diversion of state money came at a time when the term limited governor's deep pool of donors had begun to dry up after a failed presidential campaign. Without the cash needed to wage the all-out blitz to defeat the amendments, he turned to taxpayer money to air what he called public servant announcements to educate Floridians. So he needed the money bad. You see how scammy these people are, man. And this is facts. They're going to show email proof and everything. Now, such announcements are common for broad state campaign that encourage people to wear safety belts or to avoid texting while driving, topics that tend to steer clear of politics. But emails and vendor records indicate last year's effort was meant to influence the outcome of the election, targeting higher propensity voters and raising concerns from officials in Washington. To place ads, state agency used a subcontractor tied to a firm working with the Republican Party of Florida to defeat the amendments. After reviewing the Herald Times analysis of how DeSantis administration used state money before the 2024 election, lawmakers and former state officials said that at the very least, the ad spending skirt state law. So it looks like they're trying to protect them. All right, but Professor Kenneth Goodman, who for decades directed medical ethics at the University of Miami, said the state's campaign, specifically its reliance on child welfare funds, amounted to undermining the will of voters by diverting resources intended for a vulnerable population. Wonder what population they're talking about. This is corruption at the expense of the children, he said. And this is sad, man. It's kind of the same thing they doing what we're seeing in Minnesota, probably, and doing it a little different. So here it said money came from healthcare funds. To uncover the extent of the DeSantis administration campaign, the Herald Times spent months reviewing thousands of pages of emails, vendor receipts, ad records, and state payments. Reporters delved into the state's accounting and budgeting system, which traces the source of every penny in last year's $116.5 billion state budget. Oh my God. Of $36.2 million in taxpayers' money tapped by the administration, the analysts showed that at least $21.2 million moved through intricate web of financial transactions across 5 state agencies to a handful of vendors. Because state agencies did not record nearly half of the spending in the state's online contracting database, reporters tracked the money by tracing the 29-digit account codes and 6-digit object codes across 3 state databases. The public can't know the precise amount spent by the state because the administration has not turned over the key documents requested through the state's open records law, such as invoices and the ads themselves. The records the Herald Times have been able to obtain show that to pay for ads, DeSantis' office repeatedly tapped into money to help vulnerable Floridians, Black Americans. The Department of Children and Families, which has struggled for decades to protect kids in foster care, devoted $1.1 million from its child protection program to place ads. The money came from federal grants that mostly went to organizations that help kids in foster care or offer services and counseling to parents so that they don't lose custody of their children. So we see how they're diverting these child care funds. Every state needs to be, needs to have an audit because it's just getting crazy. Okay. The DeSantis administration took another $4 million from the state's opioid settlement trust fund and directed it toward the campaigns. State lawmakers last year assigned $18 million from the trust fund for prevention and media campaigns, but stated they must target communities that are disproportionately impacted by opioid or other substance misuse. Again, we can make a case for that this is funds that was directed to us that they normally have been stealing for years. The state had won the money in 2022 by suing drug makers and distributors. It was supposed to help drug-addicted Floridians. The Department of Health directed $970,000 from its community public health promotion program to the campaigns. The GOP lawmakers wanted money from that program to go to projects such as $185,000 for a clinic to help children learn to feed and swallow, and $500,000 on the Tampa Bay program aimed at reducing emergency room visits. But DeSantis vetoed them, leaving the money unspent. Of the $36.2 million in taxpayers' dollars spent on last year's campaign, 79% came from funds reserved for health care. That's where it's gonna hurt them, because healthcare is expensive in Florida. I mean, everywhere, but the hospitals have big bills for Floridians. The total includes 10 million in administration directed Medicaid contractor to donate to the Hope Florida Foundation as part of a legal settlement in September last year. So they're stealing from kids. That money could have gone back to the state to pay for kids' health care or to fund rural hospitals. Instead, 8.5 million ended up in the political committee controlled by DeSantis, then chief of staff, James Ootmeyer, that was dedicated to defeating Amendment 3. And this is the proof right here. So it says DeSantis was not the only Republican against the amendment. His predecessors, U.S. Senator Rick Scott, was adamantly opposed to the initiatives. His spokesperson said Scott, however, took issue with the administration's spending tactics. The allegation of diverting tax dollars from critical populations in our state toward political consultants and ads, especially money from the agency that helps foster kids, domestic violence survivors, and abused children, are deeply concerning, his spokesperson said in a statement. So how the DeSantis admin spent $36.2 million in taxpayers' dollars to defeat last year's Amendment 3 and Amendment 4. And this only means that he has to have some back end money that he's making from these amendments. A lobbyist could have, paid him off, but it was some kind of lobbying going on there. State officials have flexibility in how they spend state money. Former government officials and others the Herald Times spoke to were mixed on whether the DeSantis administration spending broke the state law. But by spending public money on a political effort, several agencies bent the rules, observers said. The Department of Health, for example, diverted $2 million from its grants and donation trust funds to the campaign. The department billed it from research services and the medical marijuana regulation program. So he's diverting it with and definitely getting money on the back end, but he's purposely trying to defeat these amendments. But it was some more proof they had here. So here it goes. Campaign targeted likelier voters. The Department of Children and Families described its anti-marijuana ads as educating Floridian families and youth about the dangers of marijuana, opioid, and drug use. On September 5th, the department's deputy chief of staff received 21 pitches for commercials from Strategic Digital Services, a marketing and consulting firm that has held ad campaigns for a variety of state agencies, as well as Florida GOP candidates and committees. 14 were targeted to teens, including one titled Loser. And this is some of the emails they got. So to sum it up, the Florida Department of Transportation ads about the dangers of driving while high also included vague or misleading claims with no citations. So, these ads that they running, and he's making money on the back end. Okay. He definitely prioritized that. So you guys need to check out that in its entirety. I just went over pretty much a lot of it, but DeSantis definitely stole from the American people. Definitely that was associated with some funds that would have been definitely associated with FBA. We're going to have to get him out of here. He's probably going to go to jail, but you know what? He got the complexion for the protection, so you never know what might happen to him. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section, man. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace and love.
To have a community, you must have three things to have a community in it. You must have a wholly independent economic structure that can provide goods, service, products, and things for your own people, and jobs and tax bases for your own people. You should at least control 4 basic things. You should be trying to control water, food, medicine, and energy to be able to survive and compete.
Here we got Mr. Pollock. He had a cornfield. He took advantage of a free water test from us, and this is what we found in this water. We found sulfur, we found hardness, and we solved these problems with an easy fix of 2 tanks. So get your free water test today. Stay blessed. Click the link below.